Alright, welcome back to the SSL Family Dad channel. Today we're going to be installing an outlet near our new pool. Alright, so many of you know that we just recently put up this pool. Now it was up last year, but we re-put it up, I guess, and kind of leveled the area out and made it look a lot nicer and cleaned up some things and then re-put the pool up, so it just is a much nicer situation than it was last year. But we have had to, for the last 2 years, run an extension cord out here from our barn, which is quite a ways away. It's a 100-foot extension cord, run out here for the pool pump, so it's not ideal. Today we're going to put an outlet out here that is near the pool or closer to the pool, and it'll be used for multiple things. I'll use it for the chicken coop and I'll use it for our pool pump. So let me just kind of show you what we have here. There's already some wires run out here, so we don't have to worry about that, but we do have to connect everything together and install a weatherproof outlet. So let's talk a little bit about how we're going to put it together and what code is, in my area anyway, for pool outlets. Okay, so we have our pool right over here, and we've got our new Intex pool pump, which has been working very, very well. Right over here we have our super active and annoying chocolate lab, who's going to try to chew up everything that I am carrying around, I'm sure. But right here is where our wood boiler used to be. So we used to have an outdoor wood boiler to heat our home, and these white tubes used to go into the house and circulate hot water through into our furnace. That is no longer here, and so but we still have the electrical service. This is actually a jog from the electrical service that runs from our house out to the barn. And so you can see here we have a conduit, 3/4 inch conduit that comes out and goes up. That was the power from the panel inside, and then it went to the wood boiler, and then through a junction box it split back down to this other piece of conduit that goes out that way, and that goes out to our barn and services the barn. It's all one big 20 amp circuit that goes and services the barn. It's not ideal for sure, but this is what we got. Ran a trench over to the pool pump over there, and I was thinking that I was going to try to put the outlet as close as possible to the pool. Now, you'll have to check code in your area because every local codes could be different, but I believe that the electrical outlet should not be any closer than either 6 or 10 feet. I'd go 10 feet to be sure, but like I said, check code on your own and make sure that's the case. But it can't be any closer to the pool than 10 feet, and so that actually would put me out a little bit further than I wanted to be. Can't be any further than 20 feet away, and so right out here I'm just about at that maximum, at about 20 feet away. I think the cord is 20 feet, and it's like maybe a foot short of that. So I'm just going to stick with it, just put the outlet right here, just keep one junction box, get everything tied together here into a weatherproof outlet, and then we'll just leave it as is. I'll bury all this, I'll cut these other pipes out of the way, we'll cover all this up, we'll make it look nice, we'll landscape around it some way, and I'll fill in this trench, and we'll just run the cord from the pool pump over to the outlet right here. So let's just go through a couple things that we're going to need, and then I'll show you kind of the tools that I generally use with electrical stuff. It's super basic. So I'm going to need some PVC cutters. Of course, you could use other saws and things like that, but these little hand cutters are perfect for 3/4 inch or even 1 inch and below PVC pipe. So we'll use those. I've got a couple different tees and 90-degree conduit pieces here, with a coupling on the end of it, and I'll just kind of show you how I plan to put all this together. We also have our box with a 3/4 inch conduit junction at the bottom of it, and unfortunately this is the only box I could find. They don't have single gang boxes that are just for one outlet that have 2 3/4 inch connections on the bottom because they're too big to fit in a single gang box. They do have other boxes with connections on the top and the bottom, the sides and other things, but that was going to end up looking goofy for what we had set up out here, so I did a little workaround. I think it's going to work out okay. It also has a weatherproof cover that you buy, and this fits. It comes with different adapters in it where you can put different outlets and all that stuff, but we've got this set up for our GFCI outlet here. We have a 20 amp GFCI outlet. It has to be a GFCI, just a note for electrical code. It does have to be a ground fault circuit interrupted outlet for anywhere near the pool or bathrooms or outdoors and stuff like that. So we're going to use this out here. And then we have some PVC primer and cement that we use for the conduit, and my screw gun to screw some things together. Alright, so I got this this tool belt sometime when I was a kid. I've probably had it for 20 or 30 years. But this is just a real small tool belt. I use it for a lot of electrical stuff or fencing or things like that. And basically I just have my tape measure. I usually throw it on the hammer spot just because I don't need a hammer for electrical stuff normally. And I've got this little tool. This is kind of a multi-tool. The nice thing about electrical stuff is that you just really don't need very much, and so it's a very inexpensive DIY thing to get into. You can't chew on electrical wires. Seriously, don't do that. But this little tool is called the Lil Ripper, and I always put a link in the description to this. It's a cheap little electrical tool. It has a whole bunch of little features on it. You can strip wire with it. You can put your wire through these little indent or these little holes on the side and twist it to make a loop to go around screws. It's got a couple different cutters here. You can cut the wire, or you can cut the sheath off the wire. You can put it in here and twist it and pull it, and it'll strip the wire. And the thing that I use the most on this is there's a little hook inside here, and on your I don't know, you call this Romex or building wire, your insulated double insulated building wire usually has your 3 strands in it. What you can do is you just hook it right inside there, and you just push that wire through, and it peels the sheath off that, so you can get to the wires. And it's just the most handy little thing. You know, I'm always using a razor blade or a knife, or my cutters or something to try to peel this back, and then you're pulling on it and tugging on it, and this thing just makes it so easy. And it's like, I think it's like $8 or something. So it's a handy little tool to always have. I don't always use the stripping features and other stuff on it, but I do always use that little ripper action, and it's just really, really nice. It just has a little spot over here. I'll throw it in. A lot of times I will carry a pencil, but I'm not doing that today. Then the other tool that I'll carry is just these little strippers here. Now these are my favorite. These are small, they're super sharp. This has all the gauges that I strip. I don't need crimpers, I don't need a big tool with all that other stuff on it. This is generally what I'm using when I'm doing house wiring. And so I'll throw this in my tool pouch also. A lot of times I'll actually carry little extra pieces of wire in case I just need a little jumper or something like that. And so a lot of times I'll have some of that in there as well. I'll have a multi-screwdriver, so I'm not carrying 2 around. I'll just have this so I can unscrew boxes. This has a handle, and it has the 2 different sizes. So you've got your smaller Phillips and flathead on one end, and then on the other end you've got a larger Phillips, and you can spin that around, and a flathead there. So it's just really handy to have that multi-purpose tools, so that you're not carrying around 500 tools in your belt. We'll stick that there. Now generally I'm going to be dealing with wiring. I'm going to have some wire nuts in my pouch, and in this case I also have a bunch of 1¼ screws, because we're going to be using those to attach the box and that. And as always, I'm using my Starbit duck screws. I use these for everything I possibly can, because they're just the best screws. They're easy to take in and out and use multiple times. And the only other tool that I always carry with me is my Leatherman. This tool is by far the most handy multi-use tool that you can get, and the Leatherman brand, of course, is the best. It's strongest, and it has the best features, of course, but this is the Leatherman Wave Plus. And a special thank you to one of the SSL Family Dad channel viewers for sending this one to me. I had an old one, and they sent me a new one, and they know who they are. I don't know if they want to be mentioned by name or not, but I'm sure you know who you are out there, and this is an awesome tool. Get one of these too. It's just a necessity around here. So with all that being said, let's go cut the power off, make sure we're not going to get electrocuted out here, and then we'll get started getting this all put together. If you have been following along with the saga of the old wood burner, you'll see why I was having so many problems. This was the only bit of insulation that was put in here, and they're wrapped together. The 2 pipes are just wrapped together and just wrapped in this little thin insulation. So this was the major problem with that wood boiler. Why it did not work properly was because of this insulation. One of the things I forgot to mention that we're going to need is these 2-hole clamps. We're going to use these to strap the conduit to a piece of 2x6 that treated 2x6 that we have in here, that's going to kind of hold everything up, and the box will mount to that. It'll be buried in the ground. So grab a bunch of these, and we're going to start putting this together. It's going to be kind of tricky because there's a lot of tension on these from just the way that they're bent in the hole. And another note, these need to be the PVC conduit, the national code anyway, is 18 inches below the surface. I think metal conduit is 12 inches, and if you just use bare direct burial wire, you got to be 24 inches. So this conduit right here is definitely not 18 inches the way it was before, but I can't dig up the whole thing, so I'm just gonna try to make this part of it correct. So whenever I do PVC cement and primer, I always tape the two cans together, because I can't tell you how many times I've accidentally spilled this purple primer all over something and it does not ever come out, especially if it's on like a basement floor or concrete or tile or anything like that. So I always tape two together, that way they're a lot harder to spill. Alright, so we're going to prime both sides of our fittings here, and I'll go ahead and prime all of these while I'm doing it. So these are the hardest joints to get nice because you've got glue on the top and then it's going to want to drip down, and then you get these big long drips on your pipe. So don't put too much glue on. Whenever you're applying primer, you don't need to put that too much on there. That's all you need to really get on there. Just about the width of your applicator, maybe a little bit more. It's okay if a little bit of primer shows, but we don't want a whole bunch sticking out. So this joint turned out pretty good here. For all this is going to be above ground, so it's all going to show. Give it a push and a half twist. Hold it for a few seconds and it'll give you a nice connection. Alright, so we're going to be wiring in a 20 amp ground fault circuit interrupting outlet, and this is necessary and required, as I said earlier, for anytime you're dealing with any moisture or water. You know, if you're doing something like in our greenhouse, I have one, outside in the barn we have one, in our bathrooms you have one, basement areas usually they're required there, and they're certainly required out here for a pool outlet by code. So I'm not going to go through too much of the wiring. It's pretty straightforward. And then what we have left is the 3 wires coming from the house, coming from our circuit breaker, which is our black or our hot, our white or our common or neutral, and then the ground wire. The outlet has these GFCI outlets are a little different. So the hot, it tells you your line is going to go right here, the hot side, and then your line side neutral or white is going to go on this side of the outlet. Now the interesting part about this is that this GFCI will actually protect all the rest of the outlets in this circuit. So if something bad happens here, if something gets wet or shorts out, or it detects any balance or difference over the hot and neutral, it's going to not only kill this, but it'll also kill the rest of the circuit. So that's it. You need to know that in case you're troubleshooting and you do hook it up to other outlets. You want to make sure that if this does trip, you're maybe wondering why everything else in your circuit's not working. It's because this will control the rest of that circuit. Now if you want to avoid that and have it only be ground fault for this outlet, then you don't use these load connections and just use a jumper here that goes out, and then you connect all these together. Now that's actually what I'm going to do here, because I already have other GFCIs in the rest of the circuit. I don't want, you know, GFCI going to GFCI going to GFCI. It just makes problems. So so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these wires a little shorter, and I'm just going to use a jumper for my hot, and then I'm going to connect these 2 blacks together. So my house and my barn are going to be connected right together, bypassing the GFCI out to the barn, and then I'll have a little jumper off of this one that's going to go to the load or the hot side here. Same with my commons or my white, my neutrals. I'm gonna wire tie my neutrals right together, and then I'm gonna have a jumper lead that's gonna come off and hook up to the outlet here. And so that's gonna isolate this, so the GFCI is only protecting this circuit for the pool pump. And if this trips, it's not going to affect the rest of the circuit out to the barn. And this one has a little ground screw at the top, and I'm going to do the same with the ground. I'm going to use a little jumper. We'll go off and connect the grounds all together. Alright, well, it looks like everything is working. Only thing is, this giant adapter for the pool pump doesn't really even fit in this weatherproof box. So it'll work, but the cord doesn't go through the little cord keeper that's on the side of this particular one. And so it'll keep it dry. This is a pretty nice box. It actually can expand, so if you have a cord in there, it comes out a little bit. And then when you don't have cords in there, this part of it kind of collapses down and everything snaps shut nice and tight, so we don't get any water in there. Everything's all sealed off. But let's get the pool pump fired up here and see how it works. Well, I think that's going to work much better than the pile of wires and the hole that was here before, for sure. But I'm happy with how everything turned out, and we now have an outlet outside, so I can run an extension cord over to the chicken coop, which is right over here to my right, and run a heat lamp or other things. We do brooders and things like that out there. If I wanna do that in the wintertime, and then in the summertime, I can plug in our pool pump. And I've got a huge plan that I'll share with you guys soon for this area that's going to be right around this outlet. We're going to run power to other things as well out here that we're planning to build, hopefully. We're waiting on a holding pattern on that. So stay tuned if you want to find out what that project might become. It's going to be epic if it goes through. So don't forget to hit thumbs up on today's video, as well as every video on the SSL Family Dad channel. And I'd love to have you subscribe if you want to tag along. We do all kinds of weird things around here, DIY projects and farming and animals and cooking and rants and all kinds of things sometimes. I'd love to have you tag along for all those things. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. Have a good one.